The Legend of Turtle Island, an Anishinaabe story, narrated by Terry Gallegos, Coquitlam School District. In the long ago, after the Great Spirit Kichi created humankind, the Anishinaabe wandered away from their peaceful ways and began to fight amongst themselves. Brother fought against brother, and sister fought against sister. Gone were the people's harmonious ways. Greed, jealousy, bitterness ruled the people. Seeing that the people had lost their peaceful ways and there's no longer respect for all living beings, Kichi decided to cleanse the earth by bringing about a flood that drowned the Anishinaabe people and most of the animals. The only person to survive the flood was Nanaboozoo and a few animals that could swim or fly. Nanaboozoo floated on a log and searched for land. Nanaboozoo spoke and said, "I'm going to dive to the bottom of the water and grab a handful of earth. With this earth, we could make a new land on which to live." Nanaboozoo took a deep breath and dove into the water. He dove down and down, trying to reach the bottom. He disappeared for a long time. The animals waited and waited. They thought he had drowned. Finally, Nanaboozoo surfaced, gasping for air, and muttered, "The water is too deep for me to reach the bottom." Then Loon spoke. "I can dive deep into the water. That is how I catch my food. I will try to make it to the bottom and return with some earth in my beak." Loon took a deep breath and dove into the water. Loon swam down and down. After a very long period, feeling exhausted and with his lungs screaming for air, Loon could not hold his breath any longer and had to surface. Loon surfaced near the log, gasping for air. Out of breath, he said, I could not make it to the bottom. The water is too deep." Next to try was Beaver. "Everyone knows that I can dive very deep. Let me try." Beaver took a really deep breath. Beaver dove headfirst into the water. Beaver swam down and down. Beaver swam further than Loon. Beaver continued to swim down and down. Feeling exhausted and with his lungs screaming for air, Beaver could not hold his breath any longer and had to surface. A long period of time had passed. The animals became very worried and scanned the surface, looking for Beaver. Suddenly, farther away from the log, Beaver broke the surface with a mighty gasp for air. Beaver told the others that the water was too deep for him to reach the bottom. After that, many more animals tried to reach the bottom to bring much needed earth to the surface. No one succeeded. Finally, a soft, muffled voice was heard to say, "I can do it." Everyone looked around, trying to see who had just spoken. To their astonishment, it was little Muskrat, who came forward. Again, he repeated, "I can do it." Some of the other larger, more powerful animals mocked and laughed at little Muskrat. Nanaboozoo spoke. reminding everyone that only Kichi can place judgment on others. Like the others, Muskrat must be given the chance to contribute. So Muskrat took a mighty breath and dove into the water. Muskrat swam down and down. Muskrat swam farther than Loon. Still Muskrat swam down and down. Muskrat went further than Beaver. Muskrat was so determined to reach the bottom that he kept going down and down. Now all the animals were worried because Muskrat had stayed underwater for what was the longest time of any of them. Muskrat, feeling exhausted and with his lungs screaming for air, was about to turn back when Muskrat hit the bottom. Muskrat gasped. His lungs filled with water. His lifeless body started to float up to the surface. All the animals waited and waited for what seemed an eternity. Finally, they spotted Muskrat's body floating on the surface far away from the log. Nanaboozoo pulled the motionless body onto the log. Brothers and sisters, Muskrat went too long without air, and he is now dead. All the animals began to mourn for Muskrat. Suddenly, Nanaboozoo realized that Muskrat's paw was clenched tightly. He carefully opened the small paw. He saw in amazement, "Look, there's a small ball of earth in Muskrat's paw." All the other animals gathered around in awe and excitement. They all shouted with joy. Muskrat had sacrificed his life so that life on earth could begin anew. Nanaboozoo took the ball of earth and held it in his hand. Just then, Turtle swam forward and said, "Use my back to bear the weight of this piece of earth. Just like my friend Muskrat, I will sacrifice myself to make a new earth." Nanaboozoo put the small piece of earth on Turtle's back. Suddenly, the wind blew from the 4 directions. The tiny ball of earth started to grow. It grew and grew. As it grew, Turtle sank further down into the water, bearing the weight of the land on his back. After a while, the 4 winds ceased to blow and the water became still. A huge island sat in the middle of the water, and that island today is known to us as North America, but we call it Turtle Island.